We live in interesting times. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Investigators are trying to find out why a knife-wielding man attacked a group of school children in Kawasaki. The rampage in the town south of Tokyo on Tuesday morning killed 2 people, an 11-year-old schoolgirl, Hanako Kuribayashi, and a 39-year-old parent identified as a government official, Satoshi Oyama, a Myanmar specialist. 17 more people, mainly young children, were injured, according to authorities. Iwasaki crept silently up behind pupils, the attacker of the Caritas Gakuen school, as they waited for their school bus, and began slashing randomly at them, armed with knives in both hands, before fatally stabbing himself in the neck. Local media, citing police sources, said Wednesday that the attack took less than 20 seconds to unfold and that 2 additional knives were discovered inside the attacker's backpack, which he had left at a nearby convenience store. Japanese police on Wednesday searched the home of the man behind the stabbing rampage. The 51-year-old attacker, identified by police as Ryuichi Iwasaki, died after stabbing himself during the rampage. His motives for the horrifying assault remain unclear. In the wake of the attack, Japan's government said it would review measures to ensure the safety of children traveling to and from school. The attack shocked Japan, where violent crime is vanishingly rare, in part because of the strict regulations on gun ownership. The Caritas school will be closed for the rest of the week, and officials said that they would offer students mental health support after the attack. Local media said Iwasaki was living with relatives in their 80s, but they gave no further details. His occupation was unknown.
A tornado warning was issued for parts of New Jersey on Tuesday night as fierce thunderstorms were sweeping through the state. A tornado warning indicates that severe weather is imminent in the area or is already occurring. 10 counties were placed under a tornado watch as the storms began to barrel west from Pennsylvania to the Garden State. Carlo Valdez reports.
Good evening, everyone. This is Carlo Valdez reporting from Union, New Jersey, and I am outside right now for a weather update. I just received a text actually in regards to a tornado warning in effect in Union, Hudson, and Essex County. So please be advised, especially if you are by a window, please don't watch it. Go inside to your home, to the lowest portion, maybe the basement, so that you can take cover, especially if there's any debris that will come. You can see it's getting pretty windy over here, and of course, raining. So please be safe out there, everyone, and please do take cover, just in case there's any kind of tornado that will go to your home. This is Carlo Valdez reporting for DBC, and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Carlo, and do take care too. Residents of Ohio inspected destroyed homes and debris-strewn streets after powerful tornadoes ripped through the U.S. state overnight, causing at least 1 fatality and widespread damage and power outages. The city's Assistant Fire Chief Nicholas Hosford told ABC News that one twister that barreled through the city of Dayton had left 80,000 people without power as they broke. He said, quote, "We have homes flattened, entire apartment complexes destroyed, businesses throughout our community were walls have collapsed. Now, that twister was one of many that touched down Monday night and roared through 8 U.S. states, perhaps as many as 52 altogether, according to the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. As the scope of the damage became visible with daylight, rescue teams searching for tornado victims in Dayton went door to door in areas particularly hard hit by the storm. Husford said an unknown number of people in Dayton were in fact injured or displaced from their homes. The National Weather Service said the tornado cut electricity supplies to 5 million people statewide, not just in Dayton, and parts of Ohio face the risk of flash flooding. Emergency workers shut down gas lines and trying to get to residents trapped by debris. Officials in Montgomery County said the tornado was the third in a week to rake the central U.S. At least 2 people died and another 29 were hospitalized in Oklahoma over the weekend when a tornado flattened a mobile home park in El Reno. President Trump, wrapping up a trip in Asia, tweeted that he had offered federal resources for the cleanup. Another 3 died last Wednesday when a tornado packing winds of 160 miles per hour tore through Jefferson City in Missouri.
Chargé d'Affaires El Mercato said the Philippine government has repatriated 15 more Filipinos from the strife-torn Libya. This is so far the biggest number of Filipinos to be repatriated by the Philippine Embassy in Libya, the DFA, and the Department of Labor and Employment since the current crisis in Tripoli erupted almost 2 months ago. The repatriates will arrive in Manila from Tunis via Dubai on Thursday. The official said the latest batch, which includes 5 minors and 2 Islamic scholars, brings to 70 the total number of Filipinos repatriated from the Libyan capital since the conflict between forces of the United Nations-backed government led by Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj and the Libyan National Army, or LNA, led by Khalifa Haftar, started in April 2019. In an update, Cato said heavy fighting continues to rage in the outskirts of Tripoli. The embassy, on the other hand, continues to urge Filipinos in the capital and nearby areas to avail of the repatriation program offered by the Philippine government. Crisis Alert Level 4, or Forced Repatriation Phase, remains in effect in Tripoli and nearby areas.
To Syria now, the latest strikes in an unprecedented wave of regime bombardment on a jihadist enclave in northwestern Syria killed at least 13 civilians on Wednesday, according to a war monitor. Airstrikes, some using deadly barrel bombs and shelling by both government and Russian warplanes, have claimed a mounting civilian death toll over the past few weeks. Take a look. The violence, which has rattled a fragile truce deal brokered by Moscow and Ankara in September, is causing mass displacement and bringing Syria to the brink of the worst humanitarian catastrophe yet in its 8-year-old conflict. The United States and the United Nations demanded an end to airstrikes on Tuesday as bombardment by Damascus killed 27 people, the single highest civilian death toll in the region since the regime increased attacks in late April. But on Wednesday, aerial bombardment did not relent. According to the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights monitoring organization, 7 of Wednesday's victims were killed in an air raid on the village of Sarja. The civilian death toll has mounted in and around Idlib in recent days, reaching more than 270 over the past month, according to the observatory. The conflict in Syria has killed more than 370,000 people since it started in 2011.
European leaders launched a summer of wrangling over the union's political direction on Tuesday, with a clash over nominations for Brussels' top job. After dinner in Brussels, Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel left saying she stood by her center-right group's candidate to lead the European Commission for the next 5 years.
Wir stehen, das will ich dann vielleicht auch nochmal wiederholen, damit morgen nicht die Frage wieder gestellt wird, zu unserem Spitzenkandidaten seitens der EVP, zu Manfred Weber. Andere stehen zu ihren Spitzenkandidaten. Das ist auch vollkommen klar.
But President Emmanuel Macron of France said the shifting political balance in the European Parliament after last week's election had broken the prison of the candidacy process.
Et nous avons décidé de donner un mandat à Donald Tusk pour travailler dans les prochaines semaines pour pouvoir dégager, sur la base de notre échange, des propositions de nom. Et nous avons pris la décision, au plus tard lors du Conseil de juin, justement, d'acter les 4 principales nominations politiques qui doivent découler de cette élection.
The President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, will now go away and try to draw up a list of nominees for top EU roles that a majority of leaders could get behind at a June 21 summit. If they fail to find consensus, the debate will drag on, and as it did in 2014, when it took several summits to agree on all the top jobs.
The European Council will exercise its role when electing the Commission President, meaning, in accordance with the treaties, that there can be no automaticity. At the same time, no one can be excluded. Before taking questions, I would just like to say that we did not discuss names tonight, just the process. So please don't ask me about names.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Theresa May admitted her great regret at being unable to deliver Brexit. This she said at a Brussels gathering of the EU bloc's leaders. She also stressed that Brexit is now a matter for her successor. Take a look.
What's your approach here in Brussels today?
Well, I've been Prime Minister, I've been to something like 15 council meetings or more. At every one of those, I've been working hard to negotiate the best possible deal for the UK in leaving the European Union, and it's a matter of great regret to me that I haven't been able to deliver Brexit. But of course, that matter is now for my successor, and they will have to find a way of addressing the very strongly held views on both sides of this issue. And to do that, and to get a majority in Parliament, as I said on Friday, I think will require compromise. But while we're still a member of the European Union, while I am Prime Minister, I'll be continuing to meet the obligations of the office and the duties of the office. And of course that includes being here today where we're due to discuss the top jobs in EU institutions, and the UK will continue to play a constructive role during the time of this extension of Article 50.
Now, some in your cabinet who want to succeed you have suggested they will renegotiate the withdrawal agreement. Other former cabinet ministers say they'll let the UK leave without a deal in October. Are either of those positions credible?
Well, the position I've always taken has been to work to get the best possible deal for the UK in leaving the EU. I've always taken the view that the best option for the UK is to leave the European Union with a deal. I'm not going to comment on the views of individual candidates. There will be a process of selecting my successor as leader of the Conservative Party, but I continue to have the view that it's best for the UK to leave with a deal.
Do you worry about the direction the country's going in after those European election results?
Well, of course, the European election results were deeply disappointing for my party. They were obviously a bad set of results for the party, but we saw some very good MEPs losing their seats. We saw some great candidates not gaining their seats. But the Labour Party also saw significant losses. And I think what it shows is the importance of actually delivering on Brexit. I think the best way to do that is with a deal, but it will be for my successor and for Parliament to find a way forward to get a consensus, and I hope that those election results will focus Parliament on the need to deliver Brexit. Thank you.
Welcome to Miss Brussels, Prime Minister.
Boris Johnson, the front-runner to become Britain's next Prime Minister, must attend court over allegations that he knowingly lied during campaigning for the Brexit referendum, a judge announced Wednesday. Johnson, the former Foreign Secretary, will be summoned to appear before a London court to face allegations of misconduct in public office, Judge Margaret Coleman said in a written decision without specifying the date. The private prosecution is being brought over the 2016 claim that Britain sends £350 million a week to the European Union. The decision follows a hearing last week at Westminster Magistrates Court in London, during which lawyers for businessman Marcus Bull, who crowdfunded the bid, lodged an application to summon Johnson. Johnson was not present at last week's hearing, but his lawyer Adrian Derbyshire said the pro-Brexit figurehead staunchly denied acting in an improper or dishonest manner. The maximum penalty for misconduct in public office is life imprisonment. Johnson, a former London mayor, is running to replace Theresa May as leader of the governing Conservative Party and therefore Prime Minister.
To other news now, the Food and Drug Administration has ordered the recall and seizure of imported pork meat products in the market, as these may be contaminated with the African swine fever. The FDA has asked the assistance of the Philippine National Police, the local government units, and other government agencies in the recall and seizure of these pork meat products in the market. Health Undersecretary and FDA OIC Director General Rolando Enrique Domingo also warned the public on the purchase and consumption of processed pork meat products from countries affected by the dreaded African swine fever. The FDA also expanded the temporary ban on the importation, distribution, and sale of all processed pork meat products coming from these 16 countries: China, Hungary, Latvia, Poland, Romania, Russia, Ukraine, Vietnam, Zambia, South Africa, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, Cambodia, Mongolia, Moldova, and Belgium. The ASF, or the African swine fever, as defined by the World Health Organization for Animal Health, or World Organization for Animal Health, is a highly contagious hemorrhagic disease of pigs, warthogs, European wild boar, and American wild pigs. It is caused by DNA virus of the Asparviridae family, which causes high fever, loss of appetite, hemorrhages in the skin and internal organs, and deaths in 2 to 10 days of the affected pigs. Although it's not considered a human health threat, Domingo advised the public to exercise extreme caution in purchasing and consuming processed pork meat products which are sourced from countries other than the 16 countries mentioned and are registered with the DFA. Agriculture Secretary Emmanuel Manny Piñol earlier urged the FDA to remove pork meat products such as maling from the market, as these may be contaminated with the African swine fever.
Bribery is the main way people in North Korea get food, health care, shelter, and work, a UN Human Rights Office report said on Tuesday. Based on more than 200 first-hand accounts of escapees from the country, which is officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK, the report says that the state-run public distribution system collapsed in the mid-1990s, forcing people to work in informal markets where they have to bribe officials to avoid arrest.
The report says that the misspending of funds during this time, which included disproportionate military spending, continues to this day. Famine, with around 10.9 million people today undernourished. Almost 10 million people do not have access to safe drinking water.
장마당에서 단속에 걸리면 뇌물을 줘야만 빼앗긴 물건들을 찾을 수 있었고, 비싼 물건들은 뇌물을 많이 줘야 했고, 빼앗긴 물건에 따라서 뇌물값이 정해졌습니다. 아니 않습니다. 노동의 대가로 주는 월급은 4,000원이며 1kg 쌀값도 되지 않습니다. 많은 사람이
바뀌었을까? 저는 개인적으로 보겠을 때 아무리 배고파도 인도적 지원으로 받은 쌀을 받아보거나 먹어봤던 적이 없기 때문입니다.
It also highlights appalling levels of hunger that affects around 10.9 million people. That's more than 43% of the population, with northeastern and rural provinces worst affected. The report also details how huge resources have been diverted to increasing DPRK's military capacity and maintaining a huge standing army, which has kept 1 million young men and women from the workplace. Among the report's suggested reforms are a review of the criminal code to end prosecutions for engaging in legitimate market activities and respect for freedom of movement across the country's borders and even inside DPRK.
President Duterte urged Japanese businessmen to invest in the country, ensuring a competitive and corruption-free business climate. Speaking before the businessmen in a business forum at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, the president reiterated he was staking his honor and persona in what he guaranteed in the forum. According to the president, if Japanese businessmen had a complaint of corruption, they could contact his cabinet members or seek an audience with him.
And I repeat, we guarantee a competitive and corruption-free business climate and a high-skilled and fast-learning workforce. I am pleased to note that the Standard & Poor's has upgraded the Philippines credit rating to BBB+. With a positive outlook. This is the highest rating in our history and is only a notch below the credit rating of A. Given all this, your investments are assured of protections and gains. I guarantee that. Make my last statement. May I just assure you that during my time, I said there will be no corruption. And every Japanese investor in my country, however small or however big, I can assure you that if there is any complaint regarding hindrances, obstruction, or outright corruption, let me know. I will give you at any hour of the day or night. You can contact any of the cabinet members or your Filipino lawyers or Filipino workforce. And you can ask an audience with me in 24 hours and I will talk to you. And just let me know what your problem is. And we will kill that problem.
Meanwhile, Philippines and Japan signed 7 business agreements and 19 letters of intent amounting to 288.804 billion worth of investment deals on the sidelines of President Duterte's third visit to Japan. Here's Ramon M. Lopez, Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry.
I am pleased to report to the President the strong show of confidence by the Japanese and Filipino business communities as we now quickly narrate the signed 26 business agreements this afternoon. These agreements have an estimated investment value of 288.804 billion pesos or $5.511 billion and a projected employment of 82,737 jobs. These include the following: a memorandum of cooperation between the Philippines Department of Trade and Industry and the Japan External Trade Organization, known as JETRO. This would enhance bilateral cooperation between the Philippines and Japan and mainly focuses on investment promotion activities. A memorandum of understanding between EMS Group, TESCOM, Denki, and Outsourcing, Inc. This MOU would ensure cooperation and partnership in skills training and human resource development and deployment, manufacturing, and assembly. A memorandum of understanding between Advanced World Systems, Inc., Alcion's AWS Information Systems, and Ubicom Holdings, Inc. These outsourcing of projects and works will involve software development, testing, and maintenance. A memorandum of understanding between Asia Defense and Armament Corporation, Kenko Tokina Limited, and Diversified Ecozone Corporation. This would establish a manufacturing facility for optics equipment, injection model holsters, and related equipment to supply customized defense equipment in Alion, Bataan. A joint venture agreement between Bases Conversion and Development Authority and Meralco Marubeni Consortium. This joint venture project would develop an electric power distribution system in New Clark City, Pampanga. We also received letters of intent from the following companies: Toyota Motor Corporation for additional investments for further parts localization under the CARS, or Comprehensive Automotive Resurgence Strategy Program. The project location is in Santa Rosa, Laguna. Murata Manufacturing Company for the expansion of manufacturing capacity in the Philippines of the Philippine Manufacturing Company of Murata in Santo Tomas, Batangas. In summary, we have 7 business agreements, 19 letters of intent, with a total value of 288 billion pesos or $5.5 billion and projected employment of 82,737 jobs.
In other news, China's telecom Huawei said the United States is trying to put them out of business. Huawei stepped up its legal battle on Wednesday to overturn U.S. legislation barring American federal agencies from buying its products. Huawei's case against the U.S. was filed in a U.S. district court in Plano, Texas, challenging what it called an unconstitutional National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, preventing government agencies from buying its equipment, services, or working with third parties that are Huawei customers. The firm has argued that the bill violates U.S. law by singling out Huawei for punishment.
Just now, we filed a motion for a summary judgment. By doing this, we hope that the court can issue a judgment in the fastest and most efficient way, declare restrictions on Huawei as unconstitutional, and stop enforcement of related sections. The judicial system is the last line of defense for justice. Huawei has confidence in the independence and integrity of the U.S. judicial system. We hope that mistakes in the NDA can be corrected by the court.
Song also said the U.S. campaign against the company violates market norms and will bring harm to U.S. consumers, as well as 3.1 billion customers around the world that Song said rely on Huawei products and services. Huawei, the world's biggest supplier of telecommunications networking equipment and number 2 smartphone manufacturer, has emerged as a central bone of contention in the worsening China-U.S. trade rivalry. Washington fears Huawei systems could be manipulated by Beijing to spy on other countries and disrupt critical communications, and is urging nations to shun the company in 5G networks.
The U.S. government has provided no evidence to show that Huawei is a security threat. There's no gun, no smoke, only speculation.
Meanwhile, Chinese state media on Wednesday suggested that Beijing could fight back in the trade war by cutting exports of rare earths to the United States. The bedrock of electrical manufacturing, rare earths, are 17 elements that serve as key components in devices ranging from high-tech smartphones and cameras to flat-screen televisions and computers. Bloomberg reported that China's President Xi Jinping visited the JL Mag Rare Earth Company mine to fuel speculation that the strategic materials could be weaponized in China's tit-for-tat with the U.S. on trade. China dominates the global supply chain, and Washington relies heavily on the Asian superpower to access the metals.
The U.S. Treasury, meanwhile, expanded the number of countries subject to scrutiny in a semi-annual report released on Tuesday, but again found that neither China nor any other trading partners was manipulating its currency. Despite a bitter trade war with China focused on bringing down the U.S. trade deficit, Treasury held back from escalating the fight further. Treasury meanwhile urged the Asian giant to avoid allowing the renminbi to weaken persistently, which would give its products more competitive advantage. Germany remained on the U.S. monitoring list due to its large trade surplus, as did Japan and South Korea, indicating they merit close attention to their currency practices. Now, if the U.S. Treasury labels a trading partner a currency manipulator, it can lead to sanctions on the country. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said Treasury is, quote, expanding the number of U.S. trading partners it reviews to make currency practices fairer and more transparent. With the newly expanded list, Treasury put 9 trading partners on the monitoring list, including Ireland, Italy, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam.
Asia Development Bank President Takehiko Nakao says further escalation of the U.S.-China trade war would have a negative impact and hopes it wouldn't be further escalated.
Solid, but if a trade dispute is further escalated, it would have a negative impact, including on the sentiment of consumers and investors. So we hope that the trade dispute wouldn't be further escalated.
How would you describe the relationship between EU and
He also says Made in China 2025 can be interpreted as stronger state support to the industries, which could be a concern for some countries. The Chinese government has grand ambitions to make China a tech superpower, such as its Made in China 2025 policy initiative for building national companies into high-tech champions, and its Internet Plus plan to power up the mobile internet and the Internet of Things. China's rise in tech has been a bone of contention in the U.S.-China trade war, unsettling President Donald Trump and other American policymakers.
Plan like manufacturing 2025 is a very natural idea. That kind of industrial policy is also very common among countries. But if China, but these ideas can be interpreted as a kind of a stronger state support to the industries and the guidance to the industries, so it can be regarded a kind of issue for concern for some members of the international community.
From socks and sneakers to washing machines and watches, Asian countries are hoping the U.S.-China trade war will permanently boost manufacturing as brands dodge the row by choosing cheaper locations to make their goods. Business has fanned out from China, often referred to as the factory of the world, into Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and Indonesia for years. But the shift has accelerated as the world's 2 biggest economies slap tit-for-tat tariffs on each other.
Do cái ảnh hưởng của chiến tranh thương mại giữa Mỹ và Trung Quốc dẫn đến là một số những cái ngành kinh tế của Việt Nam cũng được hưởng lợi. Trong đó thì đặc biệt là cái ngành hàng may mặc của chúng tôi. Ngay sau khi Mỹ áp những cái dòng thuế vào các mặt hàng của Trung Quốc thì họ nghĩ ngay đến Việt Nam, bởi vì giữa Việt Nam và Trung Quốc thì cái địa lý cũng tương đối gần. Cái việc dịch chuyển nguyên phụ liệu từ Trung Quốc sang Việt Nam và từ Việt Nam xuất khẩu sang Mỹ hay là từ Trung Quốc xuất khẩu sang Mỹ thì thời gian nó cũng tương đương. Cho nên là
More than 40% of U.S. companies in China are now considering moving or have already done so, mainly to Southeast Asia or Mexico, according to a poll this month from the American Chamber of Commerce in China. But the shift is not expected to be seamless. While Southeast Asia offers low-cost labor, monthly factory salaries are about $290 in Vietnam and $180 in Cambodia and Indonesia, compared to around $540 in China. Workers are less experienced. With no end to the trade war in sight, analysts say the manufacturing shift out of China is likely to continue and could redefine long-entrenched global trade patterns. U.S. companies and consumers may also get the short end of the stick. Higher tariffs on goods out of China means the average American will likely have to pay more for a pair of Nike sneakers or Snickers or Levi's jeans. And if President Trump was hoping to drive U.S. manufacturers back home by imposing those tariffs as part of his Make America Great Again clarion call, he's not likely to get his wish. American industries and wages are not set up for low-cost manufacturing on the scale of China. Instead, countries like Vietnam are likely to continue scooping up those jobs.
Thì nhờ có thêm các cái đơn đặt hàng của các công ty bạn đầu tư vào Việt Nam nhiều thì chúng tôi sẽ có nhiều công ăn việc làm và sẽ thu nhập của chúng tôi sẽ được cải thiện dần lên ạ.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at a WTO General Council in Geneva said there are no winners, only losers when trade tensions rise.
When trade tensions rise, there are no winners, only losers, especially among developing countries. We need to work to restore the spirit of international cooperation and buttress this unique institution, the WTO, that has safeguarded international trading relationships over the past 70 years.
U.S. industrial conglomerate General Electric says that it would cut more than 1,000 jobs, mainly at its gas turbine operations in eastern France, part of a wave of European layoffs as it tries to stem losses in its power generation business. Local officials warn of a new hardship for the region, which has been hit hard by the decline of mining and heavy industry over the past decades. The 1,044 job cuts, long feared by unions, could become a political challenge for President Emmanuel Macron, who assured local officials this month that the government was following the matter with utmost vigilance. The company has struggled for years with slumping demand for its gas turbines because of low oil and gas prices. And the power operations were a key factor in its massive annual loss of $22.8 billion last year. In 2015, GE announced 6,500 job cuts across Europe. And 2 years later, it revealed a further 12,000 cuts.
Je ressens la honte, je ressens du mépris, j'ai la haine, j'ai tout ce que vous voulez. C'est toujours plus, les actionnaires toujours plus, puis voilà où on en est aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui j'ai 50 ans, hein, j'ai encore un crédit sur le dos, puis aujourd'hui je vais me retrouver au chômage, et puis je vais encore trimer encore pendant 10 ans, 12 ans, jusqu'à ma retraite. C'est la honte, voilà, c'est tout ce que j'ai à dire.
Donc pour une ville de 50 000 habitants, c'est un choc extrêmement important. Nous allons nous mobiliser avec l'ensemble des élus, les organisations syndicales, la population, pour organiser la réaction face à ce plan extrêmement rude.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for you tonight.
Yeah.
Sam?
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.